George Washington University law professor and Fox News legal consultant Jonathan Turley says this case was an indictment of Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg.
Really, this jury was speaking not just in terms of themselves, but I think in terms of the city at large. At the end of this process, this was a very strong voice that in New York, you really don't have to walk away. You don't have to just watch. But the problem here is the mixed message by Bragg. He put this person through a criminal trial. He'll now face a civil trial brought by the family. And the question is, what was it that Bragg was representing? Ultimately, the criminal justice system protects our most fundamental values. What's the value here? You know, across the city, in the other case involving the shooting of the CEO, you had the mayor saying, you know, this shows people need to step forward and act. Well, just blocks away, you just tried a guy, at least Bragg did, who did precisely that.
Secretary of Defense nominee Pete Hegseth continues to meet with senators as he fights to save his nomination amid numerous allegations of sexual assault. He previously came under fire for allegedly saying that women don't belong in combat roles.
Some of our greatest warriors, our best warriors out there are women who serve, raise their right hand to defend this country and love our nation, want to defend that flag, and they do it every single day around the globe. So I'm not presuming anything, but after President Trump asked me to be his Secretary of Defense, should I get the opportunity to do that, I look forward to being a secretary for all our warriors.
AFA Action is calling out Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor for comments she made during oral arguments in the Tennessee gender manipulation ban case. Steve Jordahl reports.
Tennessee Attorney General Jonathan Skrmetti was making the argument that giving minors puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones risks permanent damage to the kids when Justice Sonia Sotomayor made this absurd comparison.
I'm sorry, Counselor. Every medical treatment has a risk, even taking aspirin. There is always going to be a percentage of the population under any medical treatment that's going to suffer a harm.
AFA Action CEO Walker Wildman says that's an ignorant statement.
This was patently absurd and factually untrue, by the way, which is it's provable that these surgeries are 1,000 times more risky than taking over-the-counter pain meds.
The case is a challenge to a Tennessee law that bans giving hormone treatments or body disfiguring surgeries to children and teens. 3 transgender young people, represented by the ACLU, say the law violates the 14th Amendment by treating them differently than other minors. Wildman says there were other lies from the bench.
Another falsehood that was stated was that, well, you know, there may be some risk involved for some minors, but, you know, there are millions others that are receiving relief as a result of these body-altering surgeries. To call what's happening to these minors as, quote, relief, that's just not true.
He says instead of mutilating and permanently damaging these children, the state has a responsibility to protect them. I'm Steve Jordahl.
World shares are mixed after U.S. stock indexes closed lower on Monday. U.S. futures slipped. The week's highlight for markets will likely be a midweek update on consumer inflation in the U.S. More news online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty P.
What we believe about the Bible is based on what we believe about its source.
The God Who Speaks, the award-winning documentary from the American Family Association, is now available in a special limited edition DVD set. This release includes a Sunday school curriculum and 2 hours of additional footage. Go to thegodwhospeaks.org to get your copy today. thegodwhospeaks.org. Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network for this Tuesday, December the 10th, 2024. Thanks for listening to AFR. Tim Wildman here with Ed Vitagliano. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Tim.
And Fred Jackson.
Good morning, Tim.
Again, we thank you all for listening to AFR. And Fred, we got some news this morning. We got a lot of news to talk about, but first of all, is this story involving this New York murder.
Yes. Yeah, 24 hours ago, we were sitting here doing this show, and the news broke that police at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania, had arrested a young man that they believed was the suspect in the shooting death of this CEO.
How did that happen? How did it all go down?
Well,
as far as him being found out.
Well, he was at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. This young man, his name is Luigi Nicholas Mangione, 26 years old.
What ethnicity is that?
Ask Ed.
Oh, man. Well, y'all just go ahead, because I knew when I heard this guy's name, I said to myself, right. You can expect it tomorrow.
Yeah. It's not Scottish.
Yeah.
But he was at a McDonald's, a kind of low-profile McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania.
As opposed to a high-profile.
Yes, high-profile.
Stop it, Tim.
Yeah.
Just stop it.
He got on a bus in New York, and I guess this is where he ended up, almost 300 miles from New York City where the murder took place. So he's sitting there, and there is another customer at that McDonald's who says, that guy looks like the pictures that we've seen of the suspect in the New York murder. He goes to a McDonald's employee who has
the customer does.
The customer does. Yeah. He goes to a McDonald's employee. They call 911. The cops arrive. This young man, Mr. Mangione, is sitting there. He has a surgical mask on his face, but his other clothing looks like the clothing that we've seen in the pictures coming out of the New York murder. And they begin to question him. Among other things, they ask for ID. When he shows the ID, it is the same false ID that he showed at that hostel in New York. They start to put the two things together. He also had on his this gun that was used. It's one of these guns that you create with a printer.
It's a 3D printer. It's called a ghost gun.
A ghost gun. So they put all of these things together. They start to go through his backpack. And what they find, amongst other things in this backpack, is a note. And I want to read from the Associated Press, which is quoting the note that they found to the feds. I'm quoting now what was on the note. To the feds, I'll keep this short because I do respect what you do for our country. To save you a lengthy investigation, I state plainly that I wasn't working with anyone. It also had a line that said on this note, quote, I do apologize for any strife or traumas, but it had to be done. Frankly, these parasites simply had it coming, end quote. So they've arrested him, obviously. He, later in the day yesterday, was charged with the murder of Mr. Thompson, that CEO of United Healthcare in New York. By the way, the Pennsylvania police also said they found him. He had a passport on him. He had $10,000 in cash, and $2,000 of that $10,000 was in foreign currency. Does that speak to a plan? The other thing, and we have this Associated Press on our website, afn.net, is that this young man, well-educated, he was valedictorian at his elite Baltimore prep school. He earned an undergraduate and graduate degrees in computer science in 2020 from the University of Pennsylvania. He lived in Hawaii, and some of the people there have said that Mangione had a health problem with his back. He had a lot of pain in his back, and which kept him out of sports, etc., etc. Is this connected to a motive for going after Mr. Thompson? We don't know. He is still a suspect officially, but pieces are starting to come together.
Yeah, I'm going to say, first of all, he comes from a wealthy family.
Mm-hmm.
This is a well-educated, Ivy League education young man, and we do need to be careful to say he's the alleged murderer in what happened to this CEO. But let me just say this.
But didn't he say he acted alone?
He did.
Okay, that's an admittance. I understand what you're saying
Yes.
about alleged.
Yeah, I'm just crossing T's and dotting I's.
Right.
So let me say that this is going to sound shocking, but I'm going to explain what I mean by this. This young man is not a sociopath. No. He's not a psychopath. The reason I say that, I'm not a psychiatrist, but when the cops at McDonald's started questioning him, and they asked him, I think, just several questions, and the third one maybe was, were you in New York recently?
Yes.
And then this young man started shaking.
Yes.
Okay, so that tells me it's not a sociopath, someone who's ice cold, a murderer who doesn't flinch. Okay, so then I start to say, well, then what motivated his actions? And Fred, you and I were talking before the show began. I go back to the London terrorists, these young Muslim men, all came from wealthy backgrounds, and ideology does it.
Yeah.
Ideology radicalizes people and causes them to do these kinds of actions. And that's why I say they're not just sociopaths where they just hate all humanity. This young man, well-educated, I want to know, I don't know, maybe we'll never have answers to these questions, probably not right away. Did his education radicalize him? Is this where he got ideology that led him to think, I'm going to go take out one of these quote-unquote parasites?
Yeah.
This is not what, people say. Sometimes progressives will say people commit crimes because they're poor, because they're disadvantaged, because they don't have opportunities. Well, I don't know. That's an argument for another day. But this guy didn't have, none of that applied to him.
No.
He wasn't a psychopath. It has to boil down to some sort of ideological radicalization. And then the question is, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Well, I'm surprised. There's a lot of this story that's, I guess, that we'll know more about in the coming days. But I don't know where he intended to go. It doesn't sound like he had much of a plan beyond 4 or 5 days.
Well, the fact that he had $10,000 in cash on him and $2,000 in foreign currency, or they don't know what the currency was, I think his plan may have been to get out of the country eventually.
Yeah.
If he had $2,000 in foreign currency.
Yeah, but
to your point, that's still not really a plan.
$2,000.
What are you going to do then?
That's what I'm saying. You're going to live. So you're going to where? I don't know. Coast. I don't know.
Going to eat fish tacos down in
right.
Belize?
For how long are you going to do that?
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like to me he had much of a plan. If he's sitting in a McDonald's in Altoona.
It just bothers me. This young man had all these advantages. Listen, you go to these kinds of schools and you get these kinds of degrees, then work to change the system, man.
Yeah.
Spend your life as a hero of those who think the healthcare system in this country needs to be changed. Make a living for yourself. Get married. Have kids. You're changing nothing by shooting some guy in the back.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Again, I probably won't know this for a while. We were talking about this before the program. How did he know this guy was staying at the Hilton? Was it the Hilton? It wasn't it?
I believe it was.
Yeah. Well, of course, there are many Hilton hotels in New York City. I'm just saying at this particular hotel, how did this guy know that the CEO, Williams, right?
Brian Thompson.
Mr. Thompson was staying there. How did he know what time he was going to come out? How did he know which exit? I mean, I guess, you know what I'm saying?
He clearly knew who the guy was. The video.
He knew who he was. Now, he could probably identify him by photograph. I mean, all right, maybe he had met him in person a time or two, some kind of situation. Like you said, Fred, if this guy was a shareholder.
That's a good point.
Maybe he was at a meeting where Mr. Thompson, the CEO, was previously. But I want to know how he knew where he was staying, and maybe it was a guess, or maybe he saw him come into the hotel from a distance. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Those things, but then to wait and to lie in wait, as they say, waiting on him to come out. What if he came out at 10 in the morning? Maybe he
and the sidewalk is filled with people.
Yeah, because he was. Anyway, that's although that's yet to be determined. But when this fellow says, "I acted alone," well, okay, he's going to have to explain how all those things he knew by himself. I guess I should say.
And with this manifesto handwritten, with which he was caught, I'm sure this guy's probably singing.
How do we know the manifesto so quick?
It was a handwritten note. I guess they found
it was an exact replica of the one he had posted online.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. That's all.
Okay.
Somebody said it's a replica of the one that was posted online.
Okay. Well, he's going to prison now. If not, I don't think they have the death penalty in New York, right?
I don't believe.
I don't think so. So, but he'll go to prison for a long, long, long time. But yeah, he doesn't quite fit the profile of what you might expect, except that maybe there's some kind of a motivation here. Maybe he was denied some kind of claim, or he knows somebody who was and it angered him, or he just hates the insurance industry, health insurance industry, because he thinks generally they do people wrong, and so that's what makes any CEO of a company who does people wrong all the time by not
approving
claims.
Yep.
That makes him a parasite, just by who he worked for and what he does for.
By the way, New York does not have the death penalty.
Right.
So that was ruled unconstitutional in 2004.
Right. All right. You're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. So this fella, what's his name again?
Luigi
Mangione.
So he will be extradited to New York City probably today, I would think.
There's some question over who gets him. And so obviously I think New York City will, but I mean, the feds have a claim here too. He crossed state lines. So wherever he
winds, federal charges?
Yeah, federal charges. Probably I'm guessing it would be New York. But
Alvin Bragg will let him out this afternoon.
Ooh, man.
Don't you think?
No.
No.
Even Alvin Bragg won't do that.
If Alvin Bragg has jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Why won't he? You don't think he does that all the time? Alvin Bragg does. He lets violent criminals go the day of.
He does. When they've been treated unjustly, Tim, as we all know that most killers have been treated unjustly.
Yeah. I don't even know if it's in Manhattan where he's a DA. I'm just saying these big city DAs routinely turn people out who are violent criminals.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see. But maybe he's so high profile that.
Alvin Bragg would. Yeah, he couldn't get away with that, just politically speaking.
I don't agree with you on that one, but anyway.
Okay.
I think he can get away with anything he wants to.
Maybe
they don't care in New York.
Shoot somebody on.
Yeah, they don't care. In New York, this guy's a flaming liberal. I mean, just a bleeding heart who lets everybody go, and they commit crimes all over Manhattan, and the people in Manhattan vote him again and again. Yeah. So I don't think they give a rip, sadly. But anyway, well, I say sadly, they think it's a good idea in the name of social justice to let criminals from the streets free in Manhattan. All right, next story, Fred.
Well, you've introduced the next story.
Yeah.
Alvin Bragg.
The Manhattan DA.
All right. Well, we were sitting here yesterday. The story broke about the suspect in the New York shooting. Moments later, we were still talking about that when the news came across that the jury in New York, looking into the Daniel Penny case, found him not guilty of the lesser charge. Last Friday, the jury
which was negligence.
Which was negligence. Last Friday, the jury kept asking questions about the manslaughter charge, which was the initial charge against Daniel Penny. Again, he is the former Marine, young man. Back in March of last year, of 2023, he was on a subway in New York. There is this guy, last name Neely.
Jordan Neely.
Started acting crazy, threatening people, threw his jacket off, going to kill somebody, et cetera, et cetera. People were on that subway car, were very scared. Daniel Penny says, I have to do something to protect these people from the threats that are coming from this guy named Neely. Penny puts him in a chokehold, and Mr. Neely was alive when the police first arrived after someone called 911, but Mr. Neely died. Alvin Bragg, the prosecutor we were just talking about, charges Daniel Penny with manslaughter and with negligence. Jury could not come to an agreement on the manslaughter charge, so the prosecution and the judge said, okay, just dismiss that charge and go to the negligence charge. Well, the jury came back Monday morning, after being off all weekend, and within, I think, 45 minutes or something like that, found him not guilty on the negligence charge. So, Mr. Penny, now there is a civil case going to be lodged against him by the family of Mr. Neely. But outside that courtroom yesterday in New York, there was a group, Black Lives Matter group, a lawyer for the Neely family, and I want you to have a listen to the Black Lives Matter representative, I'll put it that way, and see what he has to say in the way of reaction to Daniel Penny being found not guilty. Cut number 2.
Just like everybody else seeks justice on their own, just like everybody else has vigilantes, we need some black vigilantes.
That's right.
People want to jump up and choke us and kill us for being loud. How about we do the same when they attempt to oppress us?
Oh, me. That's just so tiresome.
The only good thing in that clip is I didn't hear a bunch of people applauding and saying.
So 7 people there.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that the vast majority of black people in New York understand that this is a race baiter, someone who hates.
They do.
And that what he's saying is not an accurate reflection of what happened on that subway,
right.
Which I guess is progress, because that's reprehensible behavior. Is that a lawyer?
No, there is a lawyer for the family. But
that's just a representative, a BLM
correct
representative. Because if that was a lawyer, I would say I would hope he is. I want to say defrocked, disbarred.
That's what you do to a priest, isn't it?
Priest, yes,
Yeah.
Disbarred, or otherwise sanctioned. If that's a lawyer, he's calling for. Listen, he was saying I shouldn't even waste breath on this guy. This is a guy. Satan has filled this man's heart that we just listened to. Okay, biblically speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he's saying people try to choke us and kill us when we're loud. He was loud. Nobody's trying to choke him.
And he wants vigilantism.
What he's
sad
saying,
way to live your life. Listen, this doesn't. Are there racially motivated crimes in America? Yes, there are. There always has been, and there always will be, because we got 340 million people who live here, and there's some bad apples amongst us. But Daniel Penny's was not. From everything you can tell about, that's the reason he was found not guilty, right?
That's right.
Because it was a multi-ethnic jury.
Yes.
People on the subway were of different ethnicities, black, white.
And guess what? Black people get afraid just like white people.
I know.
And there's somebody acting crazy.
This should have never. Yeah, this should have never have happened. Also, this. Allison, my wife and I were talking. We were saying, well, this is why people don't help anybody in New York. Because this guy this Daniel Penny was just minding his own business, happened to be on the subway. This guy starts threatening people around him with violence, and he gets involved to stop him, and puts a chokehold on this guy. The guy, Jordan Neely, died. I don't know why. What happened there? Was he drugged up or did I don't know what happened.
He was still breathing when the police showed up.
He was?
Yep.
Yeah. So Daniel Penny, you could say just needed to let the guy do whatever he wanted to the passengers and not get involved.
And once you
walk away.
Once you confront someone like that, because he did. He had him wrapped up, had him in a chokehold.
You can't let him go.
Because you can't let him go. Listen, folks, I subdue criminals all the time. I usually do it at night while my community is asleep, and I patrol the streets and subdue criminals. Okay.
So you want a vigilante? Here's your guy right here.
You don't halfway subdue somebody.
No, you don't.
You either go all in or you just sit there and you risk whatever's going to happen. And that's why, Tim, like you said, Daniel Penny is not a bad apple in the Big Apple.
He has no history of having any trouble with the law or anything. So anyway, he was found not guilty, so it's over, right? Except for the civil case.
The civil case.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't know if Alvin Bragg could bring other charges against him.
So.
I don't think that will happen, but you've got a lot of people talking. One of them, New York City Councilwoman Vicky Palladino, had this to say about the verdict and also the reaction by some in the Black Lives Matter movement. Cut number 3.
The man speaking, listen, look how many people were around him. What do you have, 5, 10? BLM, in my opinion, is just about washed up. Their message is done. Yeah. Everybody, this election with Trump showed us, and us as New Yorkers, I was born and raised here, this racism that they've tried to promote and did through 2020 when de Blasio was mayor, and they all rose up. This is now dying because people are really starting to see right from wrong, and this jury made it very, very clear. But Alvin Bragg is on a mission, as was that ADA who was despicable. How many times did they try to make this into a race issue by referring to Daniel in the courtroom as a white man? No. This is not a white or a black issue. Not at all. This was a right and a wrong issue. Yeah.
And this guy, Jordan Neely, the one who died, well, I'm sorry he's dead. Okay? We should all, but he had 42 prior arrests. The guy had mental illness.
Good grief.
Mental illness. Listen, I am sympathetic to the people who are saying that these big cities are failing the homeless, because some of them are homeless because they're mentally ill. Some are homeless because of substance abuse or because they don't want to work or whatever. But there is a percentage that is mentally ill, and you don't want them in your house. You have kids. If you don't have kids, if someone's mentally ill, you get them out. So I'm sympathetic to the cry that these big cities need to do something with mentally ill people because they can become very violent. All right.
Yeah, but what can you do?
But that's not Daniel Penny's fault.
No.
And you can't expect the people on that subway just to sit there and take it. Yeah. So I'm sorry Jordan Neely's dead. His parents didn't apparently want him living with them, but now they're going to try to cash in on the fact that he's gone. So.
All right, we'll be back momentarily with more of today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Ed, and Fred. And much more to talk about when we get back from this time out.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
Jesus told us to beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are wolves. You'll know them by their fruits. Are grapes gathered from thorns or figs from thistles? Some years ago, the following item appeared in the newspaper. Quote, the author of the disparaging book The Passover Plot, which states that Christ's crucifixion was faked to fulfill Old Testament prophecies about the Messiah, now questions the whole authority of the Christian church. Now Dr. Hugh Schoenfield, in Those Incredible Christians, lashes out at what he calls vested beliefs and ecclesiastical rubbish. The 68-year-old Jewish scholar is allegedly without a religious creed of his own, believing in God as pure spirit. End of quote. Well, now, how about that? Here's a man who he himself admits doesn't know what he believes, telling millions of people that their belief is rubbish. Well, personally, I'm tired of folks like Dr. Schoenfield. I'm tired of these self-appointed authorities who don't know what is right except that everybody else is wrong. Yes, I'm tired. Tired of all the people who say God is dead who never knew he was alive. They live in their ivory palaces behind the sacred walls of education and spin out fancy theories about the nothingness of God. They never go down to the grave and watch a mother lay her child into the cold, hard earth. They never go to the hospital where the father of 4 young children is dying with cancer. They aren't ever called by the wife whose husband is an alcoholic. But they are sure after reading the textbooks that there is no God. I'm tired of the people who say the Bible is a lie who've never even read it. Our society is full of them, these intellectual illiterates who speak in pure ignorance of the subject matter. I'm tired of the people who say the church of today is irrelevant because we haven't been able to provide everybody with a mansion on the hill, a high income, a meaningful job, and the best social standing. I'm tired, yes. I'm tired of these fine people who say they can accept Christ as a great moral teacher, but not as the Son of God or the Savior of men. Little do these people realize the absurdity of their statement. A good moral teacher, but not God? If he wasn't the Son of God, indeed God himself, and did what he did and said what he said, then he was a blundering, blind, ignorant fool. Stupid, crazy. He was either who he said he was, or he was a crazy idiot. But you will have to accept one of those descriptions of him. God incarnate or stupid madman. Unfortunately, the New Testament just doesn't leave room for you to classify him as a great moral teacher, but not God himself. Yes, I'm tired of these know-it-alls who don't know what they believe. And let me add just one final word to them. They say they're searching for truth. If this be true, then maybe one day they will find what many of us have already found. You see, we have already found truth. We found it in a lowly Nazarene, apart from whom no truth can ever be found.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
However, as it is written, what no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, and what no human mind has conceived, the things God has prepared for those who love him. 1 Corinthians 2:9.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the program Today's Issues on American Family Radio. Tim, Ed, and Fred, thank you for listening to AFR. And I just want to clarify something I had mentioned. We were talking about the fellow who was arrested in Altoona, Pennsylvania. His name is
Luigi Mangione.
Yes, he was arrested for the murder of the United Healthcare CEO. You know, that's been in the news so much the last week or so. How long it's been? A week. I said that I thought he would be released by Alvin Bragg, the district attorney in Manhattan. First of all, just to clarify, I don't even know if this case took place in Manhattan or not. I don't know where it took place, where the shooting took place, so I don't even know if it's his jurisdiction. And I didn't mean to say that he would let the shooter go scot-free. I don't think that charges have been already filed. So what I meant to say was that a lot of these big city district attorneys are big social justice advocates, so they don't believe in holding people, even violent criminals. They turn them out on the street all the time with no cash bail. So you'll have a violent criminal come into the Manhattan District Attorney's office. Well, it wouldn't be his office. I guess it'd be the Criminal Justice Building or whatever, and be arraigned and then be told, come back for your trial in 6 months. But they're not. What I'm saying is they're not held.
Yeah,
they're often not held.
Because sometimes bail is, and the back and forth between prosecutors and a defense attorney, the back and forth is over how much bail, and are they a risk to flee or a risk to the public? And so sometimes they're kept in jail until their trial if they're, suspected of being a real danger to other people.
But I do believe that the majority of people in the big cities, and certainly New York's the biggest in America, within the city, not the suburbs now, within the city of New York, within the city of Chicago, within the city of Los Angeles, for example, in the city of San Francisco, the people that elect these far-left district attorneys agree with the far-left district attorney's philosophy. That's why they vote them back in and again and again and again. You say, well, that seems self-destructive. Why do you want violent criminals roaming your streets and you don't care that they're locked up? No, I would say the majority, not all, of voters in those deep blue places like Manhattan, they agree with the social justice movement more than they agree with putting taking violent criminals off the streets. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yep. That's the only explanation you can have, because you see people say, well, good night. This is the guy's 40th arrest, and he's still on the street? Yeah, because they don't believe in arresting and prosecuting and imprisoning people in these big cities. You might say, well, that's nuts. I agree. Yeah. I agree it's nuts, but this is the way they want to live. This is the way that people in these big cities want to live. They want to live. Now, they wouldn't say, I'm for violent crime.
Right.
They wouldn't raise their hands and say, hey, bring me more violent crime. But they would raise their hands and say, I'm for not putting these people behind bars. I'm for letting them roam the streets before we put them behind bars, because I believe in social justice. And they probably had a hard life, or they were disadvantaged, or they never had a dad, or whatever the reason why they.
And if you give them a shot,
give them a
chance,
yeah,
they'll make.
Or some people say they're only arrested because their skin color is different. That's why people are left-wingers when it comes to crime and social justice. But if you want to ask the question, why do these big cities keep have people that commit violent crimes over and over and over and over again, and they never seem to be punished for it? It's because the citizens who live there don't want them punished. Mm-hmm. Because the citizens that live there continue to vote for district attorneys who let them out of prison. Yep. And they continue to win elections like Alvin Bragg. Does that make?
Yeah.
Again,
yes.
I know that for a lot of people that sounds like that doesn't make any. That goes against the self-preservation, doesn't it?
Right.
Yes,
well,
it does.
I'll just add this one other thing, that I agree with all that you said in explaining their mentality, of these social justice liberals who
are voters in those places.
I would also say that I think a lot of those social justice voters who are not living in the hood, quote unquote, they don't think it's ever going to happen to them anyway.
That's true.
And when it does, when they get carjacked, they're outraged.
Right.
Okay, because they never expected it to come to their neighborhood.
Where was it the other day? I was reading a story about it. One of these defund the police social influencers who had a lot of people following. I think she had moved from Texas to San Francisco or something, or was moving. Anyway, she was a big advocate in the Bay Area for defund the police. Well, she had a U-Haul, and she was moving from one place to another, and somebody stole her U-Haul and took off with it. And then she went on social media saying, "Where are the police? They won't come help me." They don't care.
Darcy Bell.
Are you saw that too?
Yeah, I did see it. I looked it up to get the name.
So Darcy's the one?
Yeah, anti-cop activist begs cops for help when everything she owns is stolen in San Francisco.
I'm
she
sorry.
said the cops didn't do. She didn't put it this way, but they didn't do anything.
Yeah, I'm not laughing because she got her
right.
By the way, it's pretty bold to steal the U-Haul.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, U-Haul.
I've heard in San Francisco, you don't leave anything in a vehicle, because there was some kind of news, maybe local news or whatever. They had a van with camera equipment. They were covering a story.
Yeah. They were foreign.
Yeah,
a foreign news agency. They
had everything.
Well, in some of these big cities, the people who park downtown leave their windows down and their hatch open on the back of their car.
Yeah.
You seen this?
Yes. Because they don't want the windows broken.
Yeah, just take what you want.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything, they usually don't leave anything in there, but don't break my windows.
Yeah.
But they plan for their windows to be broke if they.
Because that's expensive to get repaired, so they basically.
Yeah. Go ahead.
But remember, San Francisco. Remember they passed this policy that you could steal up to $900.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you imagine somebody walks into a Walgreens?
Yeah.
Which they pretty well all
They
shut.
do this. Yeah.
And
Walgreens are shutting down all
and
over.
they're running through the self-checkout.
okay.
Beep, beep.
Yeah, till they get-
right up until they get to 900,
Yeah.
and then they walk out with the shopping cart.
Yeah.
It's
Who would have seen that coming?
Yeah.
Well, anybody who understands human nature.
So the defund the police lady wants to know where the cops are.
Yeah.
When her U-Haul's stolen with everything she owns in there.
Well, yeah, the one who was supposed to help you, ma'am, lost his job because
because you were for defund the police. You idiot.
They've been defunded.
Have a nice day, ma'am.
That is okay. You can decide whether she's an idiot or not. I just sort of blurted that out there.
She reaps what she sows.
I've decided. I've already decided.
You've rendered that verdict?
I've rendered that verdict. Listen, I'll just say this one other thing. We've got a guest. We do get to him. But it's like these people who say, I'm going to go live with the Grizzlies.
Right.
And then they get eaten.
And their note was, and then they leave a note saying, help me.
Huh? And because they're always warned, you don't live with wild animals. And
I know.
And I just go, well,
I know.
If you should have seen that coming.
Yeah. All right, you're listening to today's issues. Well, every couple of months or so, we have with us Dr. Walter Wendler, who is the president of West Texas A&M University, and he joins us now via the phone. Dr. Wendler, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Tim and gentlemen.
I like that, Dr. Wendler. You don't have to call Fred a gentleman. He's from Canada. So.
That's what we do here, Dr. Wendler. We hurl insults based on country origin and ethnicity.
I know it.
So you heard what we were talking about there. We were also going to ask you, Dr. Wendler, by the way, just tell about your school, and then we want to jump into some topics here to cover with you.
Sure. West Texas A&M University. It's the northernmost university in the state. It's up in the Texas Panhandle. It's near Amarillo, just 15 miles south of Amarillo. It is the most conservative public university in the state of Texas, according to the presidential voting records in the 21st century, starting in 2004 up until this last month's election. We are the most conservative. We consistently vote more conservatively than any other area that's home to a public university based on county voting records.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of it.
Oh, you're proud of it.
I am proud of it.
Okay.
I am proud of it.
And we're proud for West Texas A&M University.
I'm just surprised you hadn't been kicked out of the university system there.
Well, they did try. They took a no confidence vote in me, but the Board of Regents and my boss, I don't know what they did with it. It happened, almost a year ago. But there's been maybe there was no confidence in the no confidence vote. I don't know. I haven't talked much about it. But at any rate, so it's not. It's a bit of a struggle at times.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's. I feel like we're doing the right thing here, and I am proud of it. I think we do a good job.
Talk about we had you on the topic I wanted to discuss in light of the presidential election where Mr. Trump was voted in over the far left candidate, and generally across the country, there's a more conservative vote this time. Do you think there's going to be a pullback on the part of these far left protesters on college campuses, namely the ones who were promoting Hamas and against Israel and the anti-Semitism that we saw on display, a few months ago? How do you think that's going to affect the election's going to affect those kinds of left-wing protesters?
Well, the protesters and the programs that support the protesters or could be seen to support the protesters. I think of these as DEI initiatives, and DEI initiatives are counter to the purpose of a real university. And in Texas, Governor Abbott signed into law actually 2 years ago, Senate Bill 17, and they eliminated the DEI offices at all Texas universities. So Texas, by and large, is the leading the pack. And what I think about when I think about this, the fact of the matter is a university degree has one person's name on it. It doesn't have a group or an ideology, but an individual. And it's not given. It is earned through effort and attained results. It's not entered into through membership. And I think part of what has gone on university campuses is they have placed group membership in front of individual attainment. And, I find that's completely, in my mind, unacceptable. These should be merit-based environments. And, by the way, a lot of institutions are backing away from the DEI offices now. Harvard Business Review, not long ago, a few months ago, published a piece on why these initiatives are failing, and they're not producing the desired results. And people have lost confidence in these kinds of initiatives to have any serious impact. It's mostly optics. And optics and check boxes and all that kind of thing, they don't make a university effective. They make it appear a particular way. But the fact of the matter is, I think at West Texas A&M University and at many other universities in the state of Texas, because of Governor Abbott's signing into law this bill that basically did away with DEI offices and DEI spending on university campuses. I think we're way ahead of the pack.
Yeah, that was
on that issue.
That was kind of like one of the first blows that has to be struck. By the way, folks, you're listening to the voice of Dr. Walter Wendler, who is president of West Texas A&M University. He's a friend of American Family Radio and is on this program, Today's Issues, every couple of months. We like to discuss some of the things happening in education, and Dr. Wendler has spent many years in that field, so we try to get a perspective of what's happening around the country with Dr. Wendler. So, Dr. Wendler, there's an old joke that goes something like this. What do you call 3,000 lawyers on the bottom of the Pacific Ocean? And the answer is it's a good start. Okay, now.
Wow.
Okay, so I have personal friends who are attorneys, and it's just a joke. Okay, it's like blonde
what's
jokes
in the heart, Ed.
that gets
what's in your heart.
But Dr. Wendler, the point I'm trying to make is when people say that, I hope it's good-natured fun. But you know what? Striking at DEI, that's a good start. But the public education, not just public education, in fact, some of our problems have been led by private schools in higher education. The rot, the moral rot, the intellectual rot, the anti-Americanism, the pro-Marxist ideology that has been taught. This has gone on for decades. And so it seems to me that what you guys are doing at West Texas A&M University, what Governor Abbott started in Texas, that's a good start. How diligent do people still need to remain, let's say in Texas, Okay, maybe people in Texas are going, bada boom, bada bing. Governor Abbott, launched the first, missiles in this fight. Now we can kick back. This fight's far from over, isn't it?
You couldn't be. You're spot on. It's a continual struggle between what is, in my mind, between what is morally and ethically correct and what the tendency of all of us, basically as broken individuals of all of us, and we have to constantly battle that. At least I do. Every day. And I recognize that our organization has to do that too. And one of the things that bothers me that on university campuses, there's a lot of these institutions, and the privates were first among them, and they've stopped doing it. Harvard, MIT, Michigan, of course, is public, but dozens of other institutions have stopped requiring what I see as a loyalty oath in the form of DEI statements from faculty applicants. And that's according to Forbes this past summer. They would ask faculty to tell as part of the application process, what their DEI perspectives were.
Wow.
And the faculty that wanted jobs at these institutions, they knew the right answer. They knew what they were supposed to say, and the ones that would say the wrong thing, they would not get anywhere else. Well, these institutions have stopped doing that. And I think it was Ed, I think, that said this. I think that the idea that we should require that kind of stuff is the foundation on which moral rot is built. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. We want people who can think clearly, and I'll say critically, not in the sense like sometimes we use that word, but think and analyze ideas and say, look, this is not right. We shouldn't have to ask somebody what they think about something like this and basically sign an oath, which is what I see that as a loyalty oath. And universities were very much against that. Fact is, I wouldn't necessarily think it's a good idea, but I would, it is what it is. But I think these institutions have seen the light, just like much of corporate America. You guys know how many corporations have recently pulled back, done exactly what Governor Abbott has done in higher education here in Texas. But how many private enterprises have pulled back from these DEI efforts that don't yield any results? As a matter of fact, what they do is they breed distrust and undermine organizational culture and so on, where people work together as individuals to meet common goals and common needs. And, I personally believe that's very important, and we need to recognize and appreciate it. I tell people all the time, at WT, we try to live by the golden rule. I try to treat people every day the way I want to be treated. I'm not successful at it, but that law of reciprocity, and that, by the way, is present in pretty much every organized religion on the face of the earth. If you want to be treated decently, treat people with decency and respect. And I don't know, but, I've had people tell me this isn't a Southern Baptist Sunday school class. This is a public university. Well, why in the world should I even have to say that? I mean, why should I have to say that we need to treat people with decency and respect? Yeah. We're supposed to be educated and civic-minded.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm on a bit of a rant there.
That's okay. It's okay.
Oh, you are.
I'm going to have to apologize to the lawyers in our audience as soon as as we're done. But go ahead and rant.
By the way, I have my son and daughter-in-law both graduated from law school at Regent University. So,
and I'll start with them. I'll start with them. My apologies.
All right, Dr. Walter Wendler, Wendler, president of West Texas A&M University, has been with us. Again, what's the website for the school, Dr. Wendler?
The website is WTAMU.edu. And if your readers want to look at, if your listeners want to look at something very interesting, we've started an institute on the campus. It's called the Hill Institute. And the next time I'm on, I'm going to talk to you about the board leadership of this institute. And you're going to say, my gosh, that is an amazing board for a little university up in West Texas.
We'll do it. Thank you, Dr. Wendler. Take care. Appreciate you being on with us.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. You all have a good day, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
By the way, somebody sent me a book about 2 months ago, I guess it was, and it was a book about lawyers, and it said
like lawyer jokes, or
lawyer jokes. The whole thing was lawyer jokes. It would say something about tales about lawyers and other reptiles. That was the title of the book. Tales of Lawyers and Other Reptiles.
Yeah, nobody likes a lawyer until you need one.
Yeah.
Same thing with police officers.
Yeah.
You know, in some of these big cities, they don't like police officers until somene's trying to break into your house at 2 a.m. So, folks, I hope you all understood. We have lawyers that work here with us.
Yeah.
I know personally lawyers. Had one in my Sunday school class, I guess, until I insulted him and he went somewhere else. But
I have Brother Abe on speed dial.
Abraham. Well, listen, I like you, Ed. I know 3 lawyers with integrity, and they are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're out there.
Oh yes.
You got.
Are you going to say 6 who don't?
You do have to search them out.
You do have to
search them out
through the bottom feeders.
They're there.
We're kidding, folks.
We're digging worse.
We're kidding.
I don't think you got any lawyers listening to this show.
Not anymore.
Well, whatever few might have been listening.
Oh my goodness gracious!
And I said something about blonde jokes, and there was a little voice in my head that said,
"Right, don't do it.
You better back off.
Yeah,
you're going right off the cliff." My wife's blonde.
That's right.
Yeah,
so are half the ladies on the second floor of this building.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
And this coming from an Italian. Okay, so plenty of Italian jokes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you're listening to today's issues on American Family Radio. Italian joke? Yeah, give me an Italian joke.
What does the tire on an Italian car? What sound does it make when it goes flat?
What?
They go wop wop wop. That's pretty lowbrow. I'll admit.
That's one of those. That's a JJ. That's almost down there with JJ's corn.
Yeah, it's pretty corny.
Popcorn.
Yeah,
the popcorn jokes. Anyway, wop wop wop.
Dago wop wop.
Dago.
Because Dago and wop were both insults growing up. Being called a Dago and a wop. That actually was my understanding was an insult term given to Italians when there was one of the great migrations from Europe, and Italians were coming over, and they didn't have papers, and they just wrote or stamped without papers.
Oh, that's what WAP means?
That's what I heard. That's what WAP
I thought
meant.
it meant white Anglo-Protestant.
No,
that wouldn't be Italians.
White Anglo-Saxon Protestant. That's a WASP.
A WASP. Yeah, a WASP.
That. My understanding was that's what WAP meant.
WAP meant, okay.
And then they just called them WAPs.
Dago? Does that mean there goes?
Dago? No, I'm not sure what Dago means. What the origin of it is. You want me to look that up, Tim?
Sure, look it up. Look it up. All right.
It's Italian Day.
Yes. Yeah. For
we'll
bad
be back.
reasons.
We'll be back in 5 minutes with more jokes, more ethnic jokes of all kinds coming your way in 5 more minutes.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
If God could speak, what would he say? The Bible subjects itself to historical verification.
He says, we saw this. We go to the Bible wanting to hear what the living God has to say to us.
When God speaks, what does he say?
The God who speaks. Visit stream.afa.net. This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. President-elect Trump's choice for Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, has been spending his days on Capitol Hill trying to rally support. Carmen Roberts has the latest.
President-elect Trump's nominee to lead the Pentagon, Pete Hegseth, is staying defiant in the face of allegations that critics say should sink his Senate confirmation. Hegseth on Fox's Hannity.
I look forward to the FBI background check. I look forward to the actual under oath conversations with senators as we go through the process.
Hegseth, a former Fox host, denies allegations of sexual assault and uncontrollable drinking as he faces confirmation.
I've heard great things about all of these senators and the questions they want to ask, and we look forward to earning these votes. That's what it's about.
Yesterday, Hegseth met again with GOP Senator Joni Ernst, who hinted she is beginning to support his nomination.
The Senate holding a hearing about the incoming President Donald Trump's border policies. Senator Ron Cornyn of Texas explains what America needs to do for immigration and how the government needs to send a message to those thinking of entering the country illegally.
We will not accept illegal border crossings as the new normal. What we will accept is lawful, orderly, humane immigration policies.
House Republicans holding their weekly press conference this morning where they briefly talked about the Kid Online Safety Act. House Speaker Mike Johnson says he does believe in protecting their children online and they must take initiative on this legislation. But there are still some areas of the bill that need to be addressed.
There's still some concern about the free speech components of that and whether it might lead to further censorship by the government of valid, conservative voices, for example. So we're working through all that.
The Department of Justice is being accused of trying to silence a whistleblower. Robert Thornton explains.
AFN has previously reported on Dr. Ethan Heim, the Houston doctor who came forward in 2022 alleging that Texas Children's Hospital violated state law by performing gender manipulation hormone treatments and surgeries on minors. Texas Scorecard reports a law firm representing Heim says that the DOJ filed a reply recently supporting its motion for a gag order against him. The gag order aims to effectively block Heim from retweeting notable figures who came to his support on social media platform X, according to the law firm. Jonathan Sines of Texas Values is watching this case and made these comments to AFN.
Dr. Heim is a friend of ours. We've had the pleasure of interacting with him several times. He's spoken at several of our events. But it's becoming very difficult for him to stand up for the truth because of the lawfare, just the almost limitless amount of time that the Department of Justice is putting and pressuring folks like him simply for telling the truth. Now, I'm hoping when President Trump takes office that he'll ask the Department of Justice to withdraw from this case.
Sines says often a whistleblower's only outlet to clear their name is to use their free speech rights.
When you're going up against the federal government, boy, that's quite an entity as an individual. This is a part of who we are as Americans. You have the right to use your voice. I wouldn't expect that Dr. Heim is going to dial down any.
Sines went on to say that the case has gotten away from the DOJ and that they are in a desperate situation. I'm Robert Thornton.
Postmaster General Louis DeJoy testifying before Congress today as lawmakers question why the U.S. Postal Service is losing billions of dollars every year. Jeff Flock has more.
There are 31,000 post offices in the U.S., and half of them don't make enough money to justify being open. But anytime you try to talk about closing one, boy, you've opened a hornet's nest or poked one. So I take you to Capitol Hill, where the Postmaster General, Louis DeJoy, is talking about reform and, things like cutting back delivery times, increasing delivery times, maybe eliminating some people. That's not popular, though, when you try to implement it. Jim Comer is the chairman of the House Oversight Committee. He says he supports the reform, but it's probably going to mean cutting people.
Court records show New York prosecutors have charged a man with murder in the fatal shooting of United Healthcare's CEO. Luigi Nicholas Mangione is being held without bail in Pennsylvania after he was arrested and arraigned on gun, forgery, and other charges the day before. For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
The American Family Association's mission is to inform, equip, and activate individuals to strengthen the moral foundations of our culture. Our goal is to be a leading organization in biblical worldview training for cultural transformation. We stand on the biblical truth that all human beings, including the unborn, are created in the image of God and are endowed by Him with the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Thank you for standing with the American Family Association. Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, president of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR. Hey, if you want to download the podcast of this show or any shows where you can listen on demand, just go to afr.net. AFR.net, it's very simple. Click on podcast, and then the banner for this show and other shows is there, so you can download the podcast from this show or any shows we air here on American Family Radio. Tim Wildman here with Ed Vitagliano, and now Steve Paisley-Jordahl joined us. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, everybody.
Steve, just to review for those who haven't heard the news this morning, of course, the fellow was caught in Altoona, Pennsylvania, right, who killed,
correct,
allegedly, as Ed said, but he's evidently confessed to killing the CEO of United Healthcare.
Luigi, do you know him, Ed?
We already done that.
They've already. Yes.
Yeah, we already did the Italian.
We already did that.
Ed knew that coming in this morning. He was going to get
yes, I did.
One of the few groups you can do that to and get away with it.
That's true.
Okay,
That's
go ahead.
That's why I mentioned when I heard his name last night.
Right.
I just looked up the ceiling inside.
Right. All right, go ahead. Go ahead. He's been arrested. He will be sent to New York City, right?
He's going to be extradited to New York City, and they're put on trial for murder.
By the way, unless he confesses.
Well, actually, he has. He's that's
if he
true,
confesses,
actually.
do you even have to have a trial?
There will be some court proceeding. I don't know whether it's a trial. He has to be sentenced for sure. So, but I think he has. I mean, he told. What I heard him say, I think maybe you guys even read this, to the police, the federal officers, to make your jobs easier,
right.
I'm going to go ahead and, tell you I did it. Because I
did it alone.
Respect what you do,
right.
He said. So it's kind of a weird mix of, yeah.
Tim mentioned this, and I was thinking, I guess I could look this up, but that's what we have you here for. What part of New York City did he commit this? It wasn't Manhattan, was it?
It was Manhattan.
It was Manhattan.
Yeah, it was about 5 blocks north of Times Square.
So is Alvin Bragg going to oversee this? I guess he would.
Yeah, he would.
Well, there you go, Tim. That was what we were talking about in the first hour.
Yeah.
Manhattan, okay.
All right, go ahead, Steve.
All right, just a little update here. There's a fire burning in California. How many times have we said that? This one down in Southern California in Malibu. It is threatening, or it has threatened, Pepperdine University, which is a beautiful school right on the coast. At this point, it is about 2,200 acres, and they're telling students to shelter in place in the library in the campus center. I saw a video of
during a fire.
I saw a video of students looking out a big window. The window is the full wall, right?
Yeah.
And there was a fire. It looked like it was lapping up against the building, and they were just standing there. So I don't know, but that's what they were told to do.
Shelter in place during a fire?
I know. Well, maybe the library is not flammable. I don't know.
Where did you go to school out there, Steve?
I went to Biola University.
Which is where?
It's in La Mirada, which is it's in L.A. It's kind of between L.A. and Orange County.
Okay, but you're talking about the Pepperdine's in Malibu?
In Malibu. That's on
so that's north. North L.A.
It's west of It's
West L.A., Northwest L.A.
North of L.A.
Of Los Angeles, yeah.
Biola, yeah.
Pepperdine. Is Pepperdine it's a Christian school, right?
I believe it is.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, wow. So that's going on now, right, as we speak?
It is. Yes, as we speak. Now, the last thing I read is that the power is out at Pepperdine and everything, but they said the worst of the fire has blown past us.
Oh.
But there's still things to mop up, and there's still some danger there for Pepperdine. But, yeah.
Maybe that's why they told the kids to shelter in place, is because of where it had already moved and where it was moving.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what,
winds shift.
I know, in the heartland and where we live here in the South, tornadoes are a threat, especially in the spring, and in the spring in particular, some in the fall too. But versus a wildfire, I don't know. I think I'll take my chances on a tornado. You can get out of the way. You have tornado warnings.
Yes.
So very few people are killed by tornadoes anymore because of the warning systems that we have. And, but you take these wildfires, They just burn out of control for sometimes weeks on end.
And they are now obviously tornadoes can be moved can come out of nowhere in terms of your
right
where you're well, what am I saying? Wherever you're living, wherever you're hunkered down, they can just drop out of the sky, I guess is what I was trying to say. But these fires, they move fast.
You
ever see them? I mean,
incredibly fast.
Yes. And and that just seems to me to be a lousy way to go.
And they then the winds cause it to jump. So you're going to say,
the fire creates its own winds.
Yes.
Its own weather system.
I didn't know that.
Because it's sucking oxygen towards it.
Oh, really?
I have seen a fire tornado. When in Colorado Springs, when one of those big fires that consumed whole neighborhoods was raging up at the top of Pikes Peak on the ridge. Well, it was north of Pikes Peak, but you could see the flames, and then you could see a tornado fire.
That would look like.
I think I'm living in Book of Revelation right there.
I know. That sounds biblical. I don't know whether it was from California or Colorado, but I remember 2-3 years ago watching video of this family escaping their neighborhood in their vehicle.
I think it was California.
Driving through fire on both sides, and that was just terrifying.
Paradise, if I recall correctly. Paradise,
wow,
California.
That was scary.
Well, what happened to those people in Hawaii?
Yeah.
What was that, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
2 or 3, yeah.
That was absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
You don't hear a lot about that anymore in terms of whether those folks have been allowed back in to buy their property.
Was that Maui?
It
was in Maui.
I think it was Maui.
But you know, the I saw a documentary on that. The rate in which that fire moved was you couldn't get ahead of it.
You couldn't. A person could not outrun it.
People jumping in the ocean.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
They were jumping in the ocean to get away from the fire. That's how bad it was.
I think their chance was.
And that's how fast it moved.
Yeah.
You know. So anyway, all right. What's your story, Steve?
All right. The battle against Donald Trump continues apace, even though he has now been elected and is president-elect. The federal crimes, the federal charges have mostly been done away with completely. We are hearing from New York Attorney General Letitia James that she will not drop the fraud case, the civil fraud case against Donald Trump. Says that for the greater good of the country, she's going to continue it. He has been ordered to pay $454 million in judgment, and he is appealing that ruling. And she says nothing that we do here is going to affect anything he does as president, so we're going forward. They're bound and determined.
That's technically true, right? Because it's a state issue. But the fact, anybody who's been paying attention to that knows this was a political vendetta and an attempt to keep Trump from doing exactly what he did, which is getting back into the White House.
Well, they failed at that, didn't they?
Yes, at least thus far.
Yeah. Oh. All right. Hey, I want to read you a book, a children's book. This is by the nominee for FBI director, Kash Patel. The name of this is The Plot Against the King, and I want this now. There are some real life characters that are hidden in this book. I want to see if you can tell who's who, because they're very well hidden. And so I'm reading from this book. On choosing day, the whole land gathered at the castle to choose the next ruler of the kingdom. The heralds have been announcing that Hillary Queenton would be queen. She said queenly things like thee and thou and forsooth, and her last name is Queenton, after all. But when the royal counter-uppers counted the final votes, they realized the people had dared to choose the merchant Donald. The heralds and Hillary were horrified. Donald didn't care what the heralds said about him and was determined to make the kingdom great again. Thus, Donald moved into the castle, and everyone turned to head home. Now, did you catch it? I know it was hidden there.
Oh, no, those weren't hidden very, very well. Hillary, what was it?
Queenton.
Queenton.
This is a real children's book?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So, Kash Patel, by the way, does that not sound like the name of a rapper?
Kash Patel?
Huh?
Patel is an Indian name. I don't think there's many.
But Cash?
Cash.
Yeah, it sounds like a rapper, right?
That
I mean,
that's
they all
like
have
a rapper.
They all have names like that, like LL Cool J and Snoop Dogg and
Cash Jackson.
Cash Jackson.
That'd be pretty. That'd be a
very
pretty
cool name.
Like
Anyway,
Samuel L. Jackson.
So he is a American of Indian descent, right?
Correct.
And he is going to be is he going to be confirmed or does he have to be confirmed?
He does. As FBI director, he does have to be confirmed. And at this point, most of the effort on the attention on the Capitol Hill has been on Pete Hegseth.
Will he be confirmed, Pete?
It's looking better and better every day. Joni Ernst came out and said after a second meeting with him that her concerns were allayed and she'll support his nomination. Really what happened, according to the account I read, is that the MAGA people started calling her office and wouldn't leave her alone. And so,
that's what MAGA people do.
That's a very cynical position to take, Steve.
It's called participating in the democratic process. That's what it's called. You know what? But Kash Patel, will likely be the next director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI. I like what he said about a week or so ago when he was named, or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. He said he was going to, first thing he was going to do is turn the FBI building into a museum for the deep state.
Yes.
Going to close it day one, day two, open it up as a museum.
Now, if you go to Washington, D.C., the Department of Justice is the building, okay?
Yeah.
The big, big building in the middle of D.C., and then there's I'm guessing, is the FBI, are they housed off?
They have
they have their own building?
Quantico, Virginia.
Quantico, yeah.
Okay, they're in Virginia. Okay.
The CIA is Langley.
It is organizationally under the Department of Justice.
Yeah. So, anyway, going to be interesting to see what the Trump Justice Department does and what they're focused on.
And I will say this, too. When things kind of turned sideways against Pete Hegseth, I can see where the Trump team, the transition team, said, we gotta hit this hard in terms of convincing, let me just put it that way, convincing squeamish Republicans to get in line in the Senate, to get in line behind the president's nominees, because you can't start having them drop one nominee after another. That's embarrassing for
They start rolling. It's like an army that gets to the side of a line. It just rolls it up as they go along. So, this was the hill they wanted to die on.
Yeah, so that would understandably be the reason why so much pressure was brought on some of these hesitant, like Joni Ernst, some of these hesitant senators on the GOP side.
Yep.
You got to have all of them kind of, well, at least most of them. Either maybe can lose one or two, but
you're probably not going to get Murkowski. You're probably not going to get Collins.
So anyway, I that's understandable that you put pressure.
Yeah,
and you do it now because you can't start seeing them drop like dominoes.
Absolutely. The State Department. This is some good news, and I think my opinion here is that this is another effect of Donald Trump coming to Washington again. The State Department is closing its Global Engagement Center. Now, the Global Engagement Center was America's nerve center in combating foreign and state-backed disinformation campaigns. However, a lot of people were upset and concerned that the Global Engagement Center had turned its gaze towards Americans. It was starting to censor.
Turn the gaze toward Americans.
Yes.
Towards Americans.
Yes.
The gaze?
Well, I'm actually reading from Politico. That's their
GAZE.
Oh,
no, not GAYS.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah,
I thought you said the gays are going after who? And I thought, well, I didn't know that.
No, yes, they're looking at that they are getting Americans. That they're censoring Americans. Anyway, there's been a lot of Republicans and conservatives very critical of this agency, and they're closing down.
Okay. We talked about this in our story meeting this morning. I've had some time to think about this. So I'm just going to ask this question. I wouldn't be so quick to say close this thing down, until Trump takes office, because I wonder if the Biden administration is closing it down, not because they see the handwriting on the wall, but because they want to get rid of records. I mean, because once you close it down, where do those records go?
What is this called now? The what?
The Global
Something
Engagement.
about gays.
The Global Engagement Center.
Global Engage. Well, it's not like
The
a
Global
clothing.
Engagement
It's not like a clothing line.
Yeah, it does.
The
Well, you know,
Global Engage clothing
Global
line.
gays, and
No.
they look fabulous.
They actually had a truck that was a shredding truck outside the Justice Department for days after Donald Trump won the.
You know, it's
election.
supposed to be illegal. That's why all these people were talking about the J6 committee, because they destroyed the evidence they looked at.
Yep.
And my understanding was you're not supposed to destroy any government documents. And yet the last 4 years, shredding has been very, very good for as an occupation in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, well, let's
talk about cynical.
We'll wait and see what happens to the Global Gays initiative, right?
Yeah, once Trump takes office.
I don't know what they're going to do over there, huh? Anyway, they're going to be dusting off their resumes, right? Have to go out and find a real job.
Well,
oh man. All right,
Global
go ahead,
gays.
Steve. What's your next
Did
story?
you really think that's what he said?
Huh?
Global gays?
Gays?
Yeah.
You turned their gaze towards, yes. Anyway, from one woke victory to another, there's a study that's been put out, a poll by LinkedIn, which is taking a look at businesses and their ESG strategies. ESG stands for Environmental, Social, and Governance strategies. And they're finding that a lot of these are not finding success because the employees aren't buying into it. The 48% of the businesses surveyed said
this is woke stuff.
Well, I'll tell you, yes.
Okay.
So the ESG, the environmental stuff, is like grassroots efforts to minimize waste and reduce the organization's environmental footprint. The social responsibility is DEI, diversity, inclusion, and equity, and such. And the governance is ethical conduct, including decision making, inclusive. So it's the woke stuff in private business, but it's not taking in a lot of businesses. Employees aren't buying into it. 48% of the businesses that are having challenges reaching the goals say that it's because it's a lack of employee engagement, which tells me that employees are much more interested in making widgets, if that's what they're hired to do, than they are in DEI.
And by the way, making widgets is an old. If you ever took a college course on economics, that's just a kind of catch-all word that describes stuff you make. So anything can be a widget.
It's like N in algebra.
Yes,
you stand for
anything. Don't get Tim started on algebra. That
triggers me.
That was
Does it?
Yeah, you probably shouldn't say the A word around Tim. Algebra.
No, move on.
Or say 2x minus.
No. I don't need that.
Okay.
Huh? I'll have bad dreams tonight.
So anyway, that is good news because I'll just say this one thing. We move on. It seems like sanity is returning to our country. After a prolonged illness, the vast majority of people in this country are waking up to the silliness, the dangerous silliness that has overtaken our society during the Biden years. And ESG, DEI, all that stuff, that was part of it. People just want to go to work, and they don't want to have to be in charge of changing the world. They want to make widgets, like you said.
That's my career. I want to do what I was paid to do.
And learn algebra. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all we're asking.
Well, here's a breakthrough I'm reading in Live Science. This is the headline in Live Science. Google Willow quantum chip has solved a problem the best supercomputers would have taken a quadrillion times the age of the universe to crack.
All right. Okay.
talking about algebra. This is advanced algebra.
Okay. So.
Yeah.
So how is, say that sentence again?
The headline is Google Willow quantum chip. Willow is the name of the quantum chip.
Okay.
Has solved a problem the best supercomputer would have taken a quadrillion times the age of the universe to crack.
Okay, so this is some sort of amazing leap in chip technology.
Yeah. I mean, supercomputers, and this is the thing, these are the things that are going to run AI.
Yeah.
If you want to scan the entire internet in seconds, you need something that can do this kind of computing.
Yes.
The first paragraph of this article says Google scientists have created a new quantum processor that in 5 minutes cracked a problem that would have taken the world's best supercomputer 10 septillion years to solve. It will allow quantum computers to become less error-prone the bigger they get, achieving a milestone that has overcome a decades-long obstacle. And I know I struggled with it.
Well, and I got to say, I that 10 septillion years, I feel that way today. That's how old I feel.
You feel that way?
10 septillion.
Septillion?
Yeah.
Didn't even know there was a number, did you?
Well, septillions, how many legs do they have? Do you know? This could be a good trivia question.
Well, sept, that's got to be 7.
Yeah.
So,
or septic, which means poisonous.
Well, yeah.
You know, the AI, which is artificial intelligence. Okay, is that what you call, when I type something in on Google, for example, I'll just type something in, some subject.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just type in President Trump election and just click on it.
Right.
And within 1 second comes 500 words or so or more or less about the subject.
This is what has changed how AI has changed your searches, because it is now you see at the top of your Google search a paragraph summarizing what
it's helpful. Most of the time, it's helpful.
It is. You used to have to go to a link to click through, which the AI is making money on the internet. It's been a whole lot harder because you don't have the click-throughs. No one's going to the articles.
But here's my question. This seems like to me, I know AI is much, much more than what I've just described.
Sure.
Just a Google search. This AI, artificial intelligence, which Elon Musk is warning could be very dangerous for the world.
And he
isn't the only one.
One of the creators of one of the AI models, too.
Yeah, and the thing, I know there's no going back, but I don't like where this is going. I'm talking about AI and we could find ourselves living in a real life science fiction movie, so to speak.
The experts
you
that
know what I'm saying?
I do understand. That's the warning.
The experts that I've talked to, and this is one of my beats here at AFN, say we're much less likely to end up in like Terminator than we are to end up in a Chinese state of dictatorship of people of social scores,
Chinese state of mind,
the Chinese ability to surveil their citizens.
Okay.
And
it can be very, very intrusive.
And when you say Terminator, you're talking science fiction, and you are speaking Tim's language.
There you go.
He is fully briefed. He loves science fiction.
Yes, I do like it in small doses. I like it okay.
You ever read my novel?
My wife has.
Has she really?
Yes, she read the whole thing.
All right.
She
Did
didn't
give
tell
you a
that?
book report?
No, she may have. It was written a while ago.
She read it like 2 years ago.
Fallen Race, folks.
Changed our marriage.
Check out resources.afa.net. Pick up a copy.
We'll talk about it more tomorrow.
Because the second book is about AI. No lie.
No, we'll
It's
be back
not done yet.
tomorrow with more of Ed the author.
Buy the book.
So right now may be the perfect time for you to rethink how you pay for health care. And here's why. This time of year is decision time for a lot of people, but it's also when you can join MediShare and save even more